Good afternoon and welcome into the fifth or sixth or whatever rendition it is of the Boys of Summer podcast. I am joined by my co-commissioner, Eric Follman. How you doing today, Eric?
Doing pretty good. Rounding out these last few days of July, it's going to be kind of fun as baseball fans to see where these next few days are for our team's futures. Chicago teams are on pretty opposite ends of the spectrum right now, so
Yeah, they are traveling in two separate directions. Eric is coming at us from his new house, from his new
yes.
castle. How
How
you
about
living it
that?
up in the big kingdom?
It's going good pretty far. Moving is no joke, a pain in the ass, but we're finally getting there and getting going. So slow process, but all worthwhile in the end.
Yeah, I am your host, Kyle Carbone. Today's show will feature a recap of the last couple weeks. It's been less than a month since our last podcast, but we'll kind of catch us up on where the standings are. As always, we'll do grade the trade. We'll take a look at standings adjustments, what's changed, what stays the same. We'll do waiver wires, we'll do trades, we'll do our power rankings, and then towards the end, we'll take a look at previous matchups, future matchups, and give our player or our playoff predictions. Before we jump into all of that, Eric, what have been your early takeaways from this year's trade deadline?
Nothing going on too. I mean, we saw the Marte get traded, so and I thought they got a decent return back. I know Lazardo hasn't been the greatest, but from a Cubs fan's perspective, Marte is an expiring contract. Chris Bryant's an expiring contract. Some of these other Cubs players are expiring contracts. So I'm really hoping if the Cubs make moves in these next few days that they get a decent return because that Darvish one is still. I mean, that still gives me
Did you see the
nightmares.
money involved with that, though?
I did not.
So in order to get Jesus Luzardo, Miami actually had to eat the entire Marte contract. So the whole
Oh
4 mil
wow.
that he's owed the rest of the year, Miami's paying that whole contract. So basically, the A's don't have to pay a cent of his contract because
Billy Bean, right?
the A's are money balling over there. There's 50 feet of crap, and then there's the Oakland A's when it
Right.
comes to their budgets. So yeah, kind of an interesting to kind of get that kind of deal. So I wonder if the Cubs kind of buy some prospects. I'm all in on taking on Eric Hosmer, even if it means cutting him or whatever it may be to kind of save some money. What do you think? What's your dream scenario for the Cubs as the deadline approaches?
I will say I think trading Rizzo would be gut wrenching. I understand the whole he could come back thing, and I actually saw a report yesterday on MLB Trade Rumors that said Chris Bryant would absolutely come back if the Cubs wanted him. I know you're not too thrilled on that one, but
No,
it,
I have a hot take when it comes to that. I hated that quote because all that quote did was just lose the Cubs leverage. If Chris Bryant comes out in the media and says, "Hey, I might come back here," it's if you're an interested team and you go, "Wait, we might only get him for half a year and he's just going to go back to the Cubs and we don't have a chance to re-sign him because his heart's in Chicago." That's not gonna sit well with other GMs when it comes to what they're trading for. So just another gut punch from Chris Bryant and Scott Boras kind of just playing the Cubs a little bit, just driving his value down. So I did not care for the quote. I think it's a load of crap. And at the same time, it's just Chris Bryant saying all the right things. I don't think there's anything to read into it too much.
yeah,
Uh,
there could be. Who
if
knows?
it were up to me, to be honest, I actually would keep Chris Bryant. I think you can build around Chris Bryant. I think you can build around Bryant, Rizzo, and Hendricks. I would keep those three. I would trade Kimbrel. I would trade Baez. I would trade Wilson Contreras, which are ironically like the three names that, well, Kimbrel, other than Kimbrel, like Baez and Contreras are the names that aren't in rumors anywhere. But I just think that like if the Cubs are going to be relevant at some point in the next 3 years, whenever it is, like you're going to want Chris Bryant on your roster. So I don't want to build this team from scratch because I think it's really difficult to just tear the whole thing down. And I certainly don't want to build around Javier Baez.
And I don't think either that the whole 300 million. I know Scott Boras is his agent. Not with the seasons he's had recently, and they're not awful outside of the COVID year last year. I don't think he's getting 300 million from anybody personally. I don't think. I mean, Rizzo, from what I've heard, his trade discussions have been almost non-existent. I think
Really
Rizzo
only
could.
one team for him, and it's the
Right,
Red
and
Sox.
I think the Rizzo could come back on a pretty kind of cheapish contract again in terms of baseball standards. So I'm kind of honestly right there with you. I think Wilson could get dealt. I think his value's kind of taking a little bit of a hit this year because the older you get, the more you get closer to free agency, your value dips. So I'm hoping Wilson gets dealt. Javier, it'll be tough because he's such a fan favorite, but we'll see what they do with that. But hey, on the other side, give the White Sox some love. The Southsiders are getting some guys back, and they're looking like they're
Shit
ready
to
to
do.
make a push. Yeah,
Oh,
I've been saying that one. That's
yeah.
not a good division, but
It is awful. It is not good. All right. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens the next couple days with the trade deadline. A lot of closers are probably going to be on the move, a lot of shakeups. And the thing about the MLB trade deadline is there's always something that surprises us. There's always one team that's buying that shouldn't be buying. There's always one team that's selling that shouldn't be selling. Kind of like how the Mariners got rid of their closer last night. It'll be kind of interesting to see how things shake up.
And we're
Maybe
hearing a lot about the Nationals trying to buy. I mean, the Nationals with all their injuries, we've been
Nationals are
hearing
trying to
about.
sell.
I've even heard rumors that they were in on talks to get certain players that in like a buying perspective. It's just
And
weird,
now they're
man.
trying to get rid of Trey Turner. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
I know.
know.
I
It'll
saw
be
teams are
interesting to see
interested in them.
kind
Yeah.
of what they do. All right, let's take a look at our standings. What we're looking at now is the combined standings. As a reminder, and I mentioned this in the chat, our top two teams from each division, if we want to look at the divisions, here's what they are. We have the American and the National League separated by who's a Cubs fan and who's not a Cubs fan, essentially. And so our Cubs division led by Phil, followed behind by me and Eric. What following behind doesn't really matter. What matters is that the two people that win their respective divisions get the first round bye. Then after that is where we get into the next four top teams are our playoff seeds that'll be battling in the first round. So if the playoffs ended today, I would be facing off versus Jay, and Dave would be facing off versus Eric.
Hell yeah. Let's
So
do that.
it doesn't matter outside of those first two teams. So those would be some interesting matchups. A lot of things have changed, and there's been some tight races here. If we look at the difference between 5th place and even down to 10th place with Bryce, the Beantown boys, 5th place to 10th place is separated by 4 games. That can easily be made up in 1 week. What's been your biggest takeaway in the changes in the standings over the last 2 weeks, Eric?
In terms of the head-to-head perspective, it's pretty crazy how close it still is this late in the season. I actually anticipated a little bit more separation, but to think like, I mean, 11 through 14 is for the most part done. Maybe COVID free's got a little bit of a shot being 8 games back, but that's going to be tough. We're down to what we talked about it pre-show, the last 3 weeks of head-to-head. So these teams are going to need to start stringing together 6, 7, 8 win category weeks. But Chad's still somehow maintaining to stay above 500. Those ties are certainly coming in to help. And Peter is in a free fall. And if Peter doesn't do something soon, I don't know if he's even going to make a move at this point, or if he's just going to kind of hold fort. He's fallen quite a lot. And one more, Chris. I mean, with the whole Bauer thing, I thought it was doomed he would start kind of falling a little bit, but he's maintained.
You don't have to bury the lead, Eric. You can tout how well your team's played over the last couple weeks.
Hey, man.
Climbing up the head. Started from the bottom. Now we're here.
You didn't even have me as a playoff team last time, man. I was a little. I had to give my team a little pep talk.
Up into 5th place in the standings. If we were to even go by period, if we go by like a couple weeks ago.
I've been having some good weeks.
Yeah. Oh no, from the start of the season. Here we go. From the start of the season. Yeah, I mean, down into 8th as of like 2 weeks ago, the last time we did the pod. Actually, we were in 10th last time we did the pod. So from 10th up into 5th. How about that? T-Pain kind of staying where he's at. The Beantown boys kind of dropping down out of the playoff picture. Peter dropping out of the playoff picture. And it looked like we said, we made our predictions last time. We said, looked like 2 of those teams. I think I predicted either Chad and Jay. And you predicted maybe yourself and Jay would kind of make some ground there, and that's what we're seeing so far. So kind of going back to where we're at here. Yeah, we'll see if kind of Chris can hold on, kind of going off what you said before. His team is kind of on the reels right now. He's not in panic mode yet, but he's kind of reeling a little bit.
Would you say he's kind of almost got that bye locked up though this late? Does he have the bye locked if he can hold fort?
Let's see.
He's got a 7, or let's see. If we look at the,
he's only got a 3-game lead over Dave.
Does he? Okay.
And
that is pretty tight then.
9 back, and I like Jay's team. We'll get into that later. I don't think that with 3.5 weeks left. So we have this matchup and then 3 more matchups after that. I don't think anything's locked up yet. We saw you take down Phil 2-8. That was a huge influence. I thank you for that. Much appreciated. Help me gain a little bit of ground there.
I don't want you to get that bye, but you know, I'm helping you out a little bit.
I need all the help I can get. Just less opportunities for me to choke in the playoffs, the better. I mean, the bye is very important to me. All right. So as we kind of move on from our standings, let's take a look at some of the trades that have been made over the last 2.5 weeks. And as always, the trade lines have been active in this league. I don't know if there's ever been a league in the history that's made more trades than this one, and I couldn't love it anymore.
Love it.
So starting with your trade with Angels in the Trout Field. That is Jonathan India for Will Smith. What were your thoughts on what you're getting back in Jonathan India on this trade?
Um, I basically figured I could get an upgrade at the utility position. I knew I was kind of struggling a little bit, getting a little bit higher on base guys. He had a few steals. He actually started off the year really struggling.
Hmm.
But lately he's
I
been doing
drafted him.
really, yeah, yeah. Lately I mean, the last 50, 60 days, he's been really hot. I think he's done a really nice job, gets a few steals here and there, does a little bit of everything. The on base percentage obviously keeps him in the lineup. And I just think he's an all around solid player for kind of a bench closer at this point with the two I had. And obviously, I know you were trying to pry Will Smith off my hands, but you're a little too close for comfort in those standings. So I
Yeah.
had to send him to your buddy Justin.
Yeah, appreciate that. You are the worst. Yeah, that one kind of hurt. I actually had my eye on Jonathan India. I think I mentioned this in the last podcast. I really wanted him. I just couldn't figure out who I wanted to drop for him. I knew he was starting to hit lead off for the Rays. Or for the Reds. He was scoring a lot of runs, and I just couldn't jump on him quick enough. Couldn't make the decision, and then Justin scooped him up, got Will Smith for him. Will Smith would have helped my ball club. Wouldn't have had to give up Logan Gilbert. Wouldn't have had to give up all the assets like Carlos Rodon to get the closers that I have now. So things could have looked a lot different for me had I kind of scooped him up, but we'll kind of see. For this trade, I think it worked out for each team. Each team got something that they really needed. Justin had a glut of second baseman and third baseman that he has. So I liked how he was able to trade out of that depth and get something that he really needed, which was a closer in Will Smith. So I'm going to give an A for both sides. I think both sides got what they needed. You're holding steady with Jake McGee and Edwin Diaz as your two closers. You're certainly not going to go with three. So I'm going to give an A for both sides.
Can't complain there. I'll take that.
All right. So then we move on to a
Oh, this is the big one.
blockbuster.
Yeah.
It's a big one, but it's not a big one. I mean, it's Juan Soto and Ronald Acuna, two of the most polarizing names in all of fantasy sports. But when they're swapped for each other, it kind of mitigates what you're getting. Obviously, Ronald Acuna's out this year, and it really changed the landscape of the direction in which my team was going to be. I figured I would have to trade Ronald Acuna in order to stay relevant. It was kind of surprising that that's something that Crimson offered to me. It was something that crossed my mind, to be honest. I was thinking about maybe buying low for Juan Soto, offering Acuna. Then when he offered it, I was kind of like, oh, I waited on this trade for days. I could
I
not
know you did.
that I wanted to do. To be honest, there was a part of me that was like, well, I love Ronald Acuna. I love how there's almost no better other than Tatis power speed combo in the league. And it's like, I could probably just throw him back next year and get him for cheaper and then get him for the next 3 years, knowing that he's going to be hurt at the start of the year. So that was in the back of my mind. And then I was like, you know what? I'm still all in for this here. I'm not going to get a better hitter than Juan Soto. So had to pull the trigger. What'd you think of this one?
I figure, I mean, it was pretty simple when you see the trade. I mean, you're in it this year. Acuna's out, and you're like, man, I don't want to be out of it. I need to make a move. And I mean, you can't get any better than, I know Juan Soto hasn't had the best of years in comparison to last, but he's starting to heat up a little bit, starting to show himself again. And he's really starting to hit the ball quite a bit better now. I like the move for both teams because if all the trades Crimson has done hasn't been apparent, he's very much building towards next year. His roster next year, I think, is absolutely loaded. And if you're looking from a pure fantasy perspective, if you could have Soto or Acuna, most people are going to pick Acuna specifically for the stolen bases, right? I mean, you're going to get that. You're going to get a little bit higher ceiling there. So I think it's a great move for both because it keeps you competitive. And Crim, who was not competing, gets Ronald Acuna next year, who starting to sound like he could be back by spring.
Yeah, it'll break my heart if he's like there for day one and he's like ready to go, like start of the season, he plays 162 next year. It will break my freaking heart.
Yeah.
But Juan Soto, I can't complain with the production that I've gotten. If you look at what he's done over the past 2 weeks or so, or last 14 days, got 7 homers, 16 RBIs, a 500 on.
Oh yeah, he's really heating up.
Even throwing in a steal. So I mean, that's basically the same production that I was getting from Acuna minus the steals. So can't complain there. I think in this trade, I think I made out with an A. I don't think there's a better hitter on the market I could have gotten for Acuna to fill that void. And I think that Crim did the right thing too. I don't know what the market was for Juan Soto and what he could have gotten when it comes to this year or maybe more keepers. I'm not sure where he stacks up with how many he has so far. So that'd be kind of an interesting discussion to have in future podcasts on what we think his keepers are. But
Sure.
what was great on this one.
I would on it, like I said, I would kind of give both you guys an A because I think it fit both needs. Crimson wasn't competing this year, like I said. You really needed a bat after that heartbreaker we saw live on camera when Ronald Acuna went down. So it kind of probably alleviated your heartbreak a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it keeps you right in there in the thick of things because if you just lost Acuna for nothing, you probably wouldn't feel so good about your spot right now.
Yeah, no, certainly. All right, so we move on to your trade with Tyler, where you sent Cody Bellinger, a big name with big disappointment, over to Tyler with Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy's a C contract, right?
Yeah, pretty good season, honestly. If from a catcher fantasy perspective, not bad. On base percentage wise, home runs, RBIs, runs scored, but yeah.
Yeah. So on base percentage, he is a 304, which is kind of disappointing from where he's at for his career.
Right.
Power definitely there, 13 home runs, 47 RBIs, which is very good for a catcher, for a guy that doesn't play every day. And probably a big polarizing name in Cody Bellinger, who he could hit 20 home runs the rest of the year. He could continue this pace of hitting 3 more the rest of the year. And you got back Jed Lowry, Justin Turner, and JT Real Muto. What do you make of that return you got for Bellinger?
I liked it a lot. My thing with this was would I have kept Bellinger even as a keeper next year? Probably, if I would have held on to him, I probably would have. I know he's having a really, really bad season so far. Still, I don't want to say a super small sample size, but 150 at bats this late in the year is not a lot. But the way I looked at it was this. This is the way I basically rationalized this trade in my head. Is Justin Turner having a better year than Cody Bellinger? Without a doubt, 100% easy question, right? So I get an upgrade there. Is JT Realmuto having a better year than Sean Murphy? Without a doubt, no question, 100% there. So I'm getting 2 upgrades. And then when I look at keepers next year, I get to shed $39 in salary and I get to keep Justin Turner because Justin Turner is a $1 contract. Bellinger's 40. So it kind of gives me way to compete better this year because I feel like I'm getting an upgrade at both spots. And I also can shed almost $40 worth of salary heading into the draft next year. I honestly think it was a win-win for me. He wasn't quite sure why I had to throw Lowry in there, but I mean, looking at Lowry's season, that's not a bad little bat to pick up either. So I like the trade for my squad, and obviously this kind of gives Tyler maybe some added star power heading into next year because he's got a couple big stars on his team now.
Yeah. Yeah. The irony of him being desperate for a second baseman after you needing to throw in Jed Lowry is kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, with this return in a vacuum, I look at the players you got back for a name like Cody Bellinger, and you're like, okay, like the trade doesn't really wow me for either side. But as you said, you put it pretty eloquently. I like the value in Justin Turner, one of the best $1 values in the entire league. JT Real Muto, I don't know if he's a keeper. It's pretty expensive to keep a catcher, especially for a guy who's not really lived up to what his potential is. I mean, for Pete's sake, I mean, Sean Murphy has better numbers than Realmuto at this point. Only 10 homers, 39 RBIs, 37 runs scored. Not very good counting stats there. And Jed Lowry, who's a serviceable utility guy, probably won't crack your lineup a whole lot, but it's a good bat to have kind of on the reserve. I know you like that multi-position eligibility. So decent return. So, I mean, it's not like you had to be your socks knocked off with this one, but this trade, I do believe, helped your team. And I mean, it certainly helped your team if you look at the moves that you've made since you've made this trade. It really kind of added another dimension to your team and looking pretty good. All right, so we'll move on to Crim's crew trading away Clayton Kershaw, John Gray, and Andrew Vaughn, getting back Carlos Correa. This one I didn't love for really either side. I mean, if I had to choose a side of which side I like more, I think I'd probably like Peter's side a little bit more. I just don't think Correa is like this huge steal. I mean, he's played well, 16 homers, 56 RBIs, 66 runs scored for $11, I believe it is. He's good value, certainly, and he's definitely a keeper at that value. For the return of Andrew Vaughn and Clayton Kershaw, I thought that maybe Krim could have gotten a little bit more in that. I just think that Correa has battled some injury stuff. He doesn't really play full seasons. He's usually on the IL once or twice at some point throughout the year. And shortstop's a pretty deep position. So I just thought it was weird to give up all 3 of those assets for Correa. I thought there might have been a better offer out there, but he's had these guys on the block all year. And if he had a better offer, he would have taken it.
Yeah, Vaughn's been thrown around quite a bit this year, from starting on my team to going to Dave's to going to Peter's to go all over the place. But I think Crimson, from what he told me, his perspective on this trade was Vaughn might have been a keeper for him. He was kind of a fringe keeper at $14. I know he's been kind of doing a little bit better lately, but he did not at this point intend on keeping Kershaw or Vaughn. And
Yeah.
at $11, he can keep Correa. So it was almost like he was trading three expendable pieces for a keeper. So again, kind of going back to what I said before with Krim really looking towards next year, I think Correa came in Fangraphs at a $10 player, which really, when you look at his last couple of years, is about right, because he's
Yeah.
not a high on base guy. He's not going to be the 35, 30 plus home run bat, but this has kind of been a little bit of a renaissance year for him in terms of on base percentage, a little bit more pop in terms of that. So I think,
Career
like you
high
said,
in homers is 24 for a
right.
guy that doesn't steal bases.
You're right, exactly. So I think the way I basically when he asked, I basically said, "Who do you think who do you think is a better player, Vaughn or Correa?" That's basically what it comes down to, because Vaughn over the next 3 years could be huge. He could really be that guy that hits that ceiling, or Correa could just be that sound, balanced, cheap bat that's in your lineup for the next couple of years.
Yeah. All right. So for that trade, I'll give Krim a C. I'll give Peter a B plus.
Sounds about right, especially with Peter needing that pitching. We were kind of been talking about him needing that move, and I don't know what I see. Kershaw's got an injury label. I don't know if that's
He
significant.
hasn't pitched since the trade.
Okay, yeah, so he's eligible to return soon. Soon might be not soon enough for Peter, though. I mean,
Yeah.
we're getting to that point where that could really cost him, but he really does need Kershaw to get back and start doing his thing, because that, you could argue, that's one of the worst years of Kershaw's career, and that's still very, very good numbers. I mean,
Yeah.
the WHIP, the ERA, the Ks are there. Very, very good stuff.
Better pitcher of the 2010s, Clayton Kershaw or Jake DeGrom?
Oof. Man, I would say Kershaw over the longevity. Yeah, I would.
He's been doing
I
it for
would.
longer. Yeah, DeGrom
Yeah,
didn't debut until later, but DeGrom's stuff are just undeniable. A
sure. Oh yeah.
93-mile-an-hour slider and a 102-mile-an-hour fastball.
Gotta love it
All
on the
right.
show.
So next we have a trade that Tyler and I made. I've been getting pretty desperate for closers. I've been sending out offers every which way. Eric knows this. I've been hitting him up about his closers for a while. I traded Carlos Rodon and Heath Hembry, who is currently the Cincinnati closer. He's gotten a few saves, for Rizal Iglesias. Kind of interesting trade. Normally, it's not a trade that I would ever make. Normally, I have plenty of closing depth. Usually, I'm pretty active on the waiver wire. I have those closers. I just have struck out with all the closers I've picked up, all the closers I've kept, all the closers I've released, and none of them have really worked out. I find myself like in second to last in saves this year. Hasn't really worked out for me. So I wanted to find a closer who was not only available, but I knew was going to be on a winning team and who was going to kind of go all in for this year. And at the same time, who I felt pretty good about his job security, knock on wood. So that's why I went after Iglesias. Tyler had Trevino as well, but I just worried about Oakland trading for a closer at the deadline, so I wasn't too sure. I was pretty confident in the Angels winning plenty of games and Iglesias keeping his job. Carlos Rodon, I just wanted to get out of his name as quick as I could. I was happy to take on the asset because Carlos Rodon has been a very, very good pitcher this year. I just fear that Carlos Rodon has not thrown 100 innings he threw 120 in 2018. And before that, 7 innings in 2020, 34 innings in 2019, 69 innings in 2017. I'm afraid that he's going to be on a pitch count. And he was one piece of breaking news away of like the White Sox being like, hey, we're going to limit his workload from here on out, or we're going to only have him pitch 4 or 5 innings, or we're going to shut him down for August from his trade value being gone as a C player. So I was kind of looking out to move him as quick as I could. And he's pitched really well for Tyler. So I think it's kind of working out for both sides.
Yeah, I was a little surprised at how willing you were to give up Rodon. I know you have quite a bit of pitching. You have tons. You have some even injured. The Miami pitchers, DeGrom right now, but Rodon's what, number 2 right now, probably in Cy Young voting behind his teammate. I mean, you'd
Yeah.
have to think. And the other thing too, which I noticed, is stat wise, he's never been that huge strikeout guy. He's averaged about 9 maybe per, sometimes less. If you go back to the 2018 year, 120 innings, 90 Ks.
Yeah.
This year, something's clicked. I don't know if it's baseball in general where everyone's striking out, but 100 innings, 145 Ks, 2.2 ERA. Are the White Sox finally getting the pitcher that they've been dreaming of? Maybe. And the other thing I would say in terms of the inning limit, everything is pointing to the White Sox all in this year. I don't, with Rodon soon to become a free agent, I think he might be a free agent. Is it after this year? Maybe next year?
How do you
I
sign a
don't think,
1-year deal?
yeah, I don't think they care if his arm falls off. I don't think
That's
they
true.
care. I mean, they're gonna throw him out there, and if they need to throw him out there, they will, and there's no reason not to at this point. And I don't mind this move for you because you got your closer. Tyler was a little different. I'm not saying he's out of it. I think he got a great ace in Rodon, but again, if he was looking a little bit more look towards next year, this is kind of a this year move. I mean, totally, because Rodon's gone.
The thing about Rodon is that you still retain the asset. Just because he traded for Rodon now doesn't mean you can't trade him away in 2 weeks if he sees fit. So I still think the
Sure.
value for Rodon is there. If he wants to trade him, if he's out in 2 weeks, he wants to trade him
But
for
it continues to
for a
lower
keeper.
the closer we get to the end of the season, though. Because
Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Or maybe the desperation rises. Maybe Chris looks at him and goes, okay, I need to have Rodon because I'm desperate in pitching. And so the price kind of goes up, the more desperate
you
we
never
get.
know.
A guy like Peter could really use Carlos Rodon at this point. Yeah, the other thing at that time is at the time where I made the trade, I did have a healthy DeGrom. I had a healthy Pablo Lopez, Alcantara, Kikichi, Valdez, Urquidy, and Skubal, who was actually pitching well before the trade. So, I mean,
Right.
I thought I had the pitching depth, and then boom, 2 days later, I lose
Sure.
Pablo Lopez. And
You know what they say, Kyle? You can never have enough
you
pitching.
never have too much pitching. Yes. All right. You got a grade for us on that one?
I would give. I mean, it's tough because if Tyler's going to compete this year, I mean, you've got to love the move for him because he gets the number 2 guy in the Cy Young race. So I'd give a B+ to Tyler. I think you showed your desperation a little bit in the saves, but I feel like it was a move that you felt like you needed to make and you had kind of the team to do it. So I'd give you like a B-B, but it's just tough to see like literally the number 2 guy in Cy Young getting traded for saves. I mean, it's just tough to see.
Yeah, I would give myself something like a C too. Yeah, I don't think it was a great trade, but it's just something that I had to do.
Right. It makes sense, but it's not something. Yeah, totally 100%.
All right. So next we have Jameson Tyone swapped with Adam Duvall, which was one of 3 1-for-1 trades that Jay and Dave have made. Kind of interesting. I love that. I love the little sigh there, but we'll get to some of the others in a sec.
Yeah.
But I don't think we need to really say much about this one.
No, not at all. 2 guys. I mean, Duvall's been on the waiver wire almost all year, been picked up, dropped. Tyone's, I don't think's a starter on most fantasy teams at this point. So
yeah, and Tyone, we're gonna see, was in a different trade
yes.
that was made the same day. He was on. Let's see. He was on Jay's team for 2 hours and 24 minutes. Adam Duvall. So we stopped, had a cup of coffee, and he was on his merry way.
Sure was.
And kind of a big trade here. Not really like big in regards to names, but big in regards to players, how it kind of changed the landscape here. Very interesting. I'm interested to see what you kind of think of this one. So Jay traded to Justin. He gave up Graveman, Duvall, Pineda, and McCutchen, and he got back Haniger and Ian Kennedy. So kind of a lot to give up there for Haniger and Kennedy. What's your reaction to this one?
Haniger, I've always been a huge fan of, and I think he's, big power bat, scores a lot of runs. I was surprised to see that in terms of what he's able to provide. And Ian Kennedy's been pretty darn good this year, but how many save opportunities are the Rangers going to get, right? So
Yeah.
I could see why that was the case.
Be on the move, I would assume.
Right. McCutchen's kind of had a little bit of revitalizing career season here. Still not amazing. Pineda's been okay. I was kind of surprised that that Justin gave up Haniger and Kennedy for that return in my eyes. I think Jay got a little bit better of the return here, and simply kind of your famous words, who got the best player? I mean, Mitch Haniger's got to be the best player in this deal, right?
Is he?
I would assume so. Who's better?
So Mitch Haniger is a $1 player. He's got 25 homers and a 317 on base.
Yeah. I mean,
McCutchen is also a $1 A player. And McCutchen, who is a batting average, doesn't look good, but he also has a 355 on base percentage with 19 home runs, 56 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, and 53 runs scored. He's helping you in every category there with a very much better on base percentage. I just think that Justin looked at this trade and he goes, the drop off from Haniger to McCutchen is not that large. It's pretty negligible. Basically just swapping categories, both $1 A players. Then on top of that, I'm giving up Ian Kennedy and getting Graveman. So Graveman's the better closer than Kennedy is. So that kind of mitigates that. And then I'm just getting Duvall and Pineda for free. So Duvall is in his lineup right now. He sees the power that he's hit. And since this trade, which was last week, so over the last 7 to 14 days, Duvall has hit 3 home runs, 6 RBIs.
Is Graveman the closer though?
Not anymore. When
I
he
was
made
gonna
the trade,
say.
he was, but things have changed since that
For a
trade.
couple days, he was the closer. I was gonna say he's having a terrific year, but at
Yeah.
this point, could you even put him in your lineup if he's not the closer? I mean, what value does he really bring? So that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, the ratios are good enough, 0.8 ERA and a 0.6.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And I don't think that the weird thing is they traded for him. They needed depth in their bullpen, but Presley's been good too. So it's not like they needed a guy to replace Presley. I still think it's Presley's job. He's been good enough to keep it, and there's no reason to replace him at this point. So
Right.
yeah, I think that they roll with Graveman as the setup guy and Presley is the closer. But yeah, it kind of came back to bite Justin because Graveman lost the closing job, but I would expect Ian Kennedy to do the same. I think that Texas will probably trade Ian Kennedy at some point in the next 2 days and trade him somewhere. He'll be the setup guy as well. So we'll kind of see how that one irons out. I'm going to give Justin an A- here. It was weird to trade Haniger because he's younger, because he's $1 for a team that 2 weeks ago was saying fire sale is on. I'm trading everybody and building for the future. I had to talk him off the ledge a little bit there. And he's in the thick of the playoff race. So we'll kind of see and then for Jay, I'll give him a B.
Yeah, I'll actually give Jay B plus. I'll give Justin like a B-. I like Jay's side a little bit more. Again, I think Haniger is a keeper. I don't know if McCutchen, I mean, I guess you could keep him, but I think he's a little bit long on the tooth in terms of what he's able to provide. I know again
What's
he's
the
having
difference between McCutchen and Justin Turner?
You want to look at the numbers?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think they're that different.
Oh man, I don't know. I would look at the
pull up
numbers.
Justin Turner's numbers right now.
All right, let's see. You got McCutcheon's, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Justin Turner is 388 OBP.
Okay, 355 for McCutchen.
That's pretty significant.
Okay.
57 runs.
53 runs.
58 RBIs.
56 RBIs.
And 18 home runs.
19 homers.
So yeah, I mean 30.
And
I mean it's not
6 steals. 6 steals for McCutchen. 6 steals worth 30 points in on base percentage.
Possibly. Yeah.
Okay, so they're the same. So they're the same player, and you wouldn't keep McCutchen, but you would keep Justin Turner. They're both on the back ends of their careers.
If you're telling me next year you had to pick one player to have a productive year, who are you picking? I'm picking Justin Turner because he's showing it year in and year out. McCutchen's been showing his age the last few years.
Not only do you have to, Justin Turner is barely on a team, wasn't on a team this year. He's close to retirement, and he's a guy that's always battled injuries. He's never had a full season either. So
I don't know, man. If you look at his last 6-7 years, he's been one of the best hitters in baseball. I mean, come on. He's always got a 400 on base. He's always hit 300.
Look at the games played. He always ends up on the IL.
130, 140 games. That's not awful.
He couldn't stay healthy for a 60-game season last year.
42 out of 60 games, 75%. That's not bad.
And he's never hit 30 home runs.
Nope.
But
he's got 400 on base percentage, and he scores in that lineup close to 80, 90 runs a year, I would say.
Which is exactly what McCutchen does.
Well, we'll see, man. I don't know. If you're telling me you had to 100% pick a guy to have a better year next year, I'm picking Justin Turner. But again, that's all opinions.
I'll go. I just don't think that I think it's pretty negligible. I just don't think that there's a huge gap there. I would probably I'd probably lean towards McCutchen. I just don't think you can say with shadow of the doubt that you were 100% keeping Justin Turner at $1, but you wouldn't keep McCutchen. I just think that they're basically
and McCutchen's $1 too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, then we have Just a Blah team and Jay making another trade, swapping catchers, and Christian Vasquez goes to Just a Blah team, Dave, and Buster Posey goes to Jay. Eric, the floor is yours.
Well, this is kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, as they'd say, because it wasn't really. I shouldn't get this fired up over a catcher for catcher trade, but this has a little bit of history because of Dave and Jay's trade between where Dave traded Brian Reynolds, who's having an amazing season, like literally an amazing season, for Frankie Montas, who has a 4.5 ERA. So then that was kind of the precursor, which was just awful. That was just a bad trade when it happened, and it's bad even still to this point. When you look at what Brian Reynolds has done this year and what he's been able, and it's not like he wasn't doing that when the trade happened. If you look at his month-to-month numbers, the month he traded him was by far and away the best month of his season, and it's not even close. So that's kind
391
of
on base percentage, 18 homers, and 57 RBIs. How many runs scored? 57 runs scored.
For what? Frankie Montas and like a 4 something plus ERA, just not good numbers. So we could throw that one out there. But then he trades Buster Posey, who you could argue, I know he's not had the at-bats, I know he's not played every single day, but he's literally traded Buster Posey, who you could argue has been the best hitting catcher in the National League this year in terms of average, on base percentage. His home runs are actually a bit of a tick up when you look at how many at-bats he's had, for Christian Vasquez. And the only sensible thing that could go through your head is when you look at the steal category. And I'm sorry, but if you're looking at a catcher and you're like, oh, I need to get those 8 steals, which at this point in the year,
even though his career high was 7 going into the
right.
year.
So like, is he going to even get 10 or 11? But let's play math, since you're a math teacher. We're 2/3 of the way in, so he's on pace for 12.
Mm-hmm.
So you gave up the OBP, you gave up the home runs, you gave up all of this for a couple steals. Like, I know it's a catcher for catcher trade. I probably shouldn't spend that much time on it, but some of these trades Dave is making, it amazes me that he's that high in the roto standings, because it's just not good. They're just not good moves. I'm sorry, but they're not.
And Buster Posey is $5 and
right.
probably a keeper. Oh, you say Vasquez is 2, so he's going to save $3.
And that's what I'm saying. For what? And he kept telling me, well, the RBIs. I'm like, well, yeah, Buster Posey hasn't played as much, but even still, if he doesn't have as many at bats, all the other numbers are there where you would still start Posey over Vasquez in that catcher position. So again, I don't know what was going through Dave's head. He later did tell me, yes, it was for the steals, which makes my point hammer in even more. But I don't understand it. That Jade Dave connection, it's strong, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you got to build that rapport.
So that's an F for Dave.
Speaking of building rapport, we have a trade between me and my best man, Angels on the Trout Field. Are you going F? You going F for Dave and A
F
for Jay?
And I usually don't like giving Fs. So I usually try to give a little, student a little bit of a something to get that grade up. But Dave's just got straight Fs on some of these trades. So
I'll go D. I think that neither one of us can predict the future. I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibilities that Christian Vasquez is the better catcher rest of the year than Buster Posey. I don't think we can guarantee that Buster Posey stays healthy the rest of the year, and I certainly can't think we can guarantee that he's going to continue to put up the same numbers he's put up in the first half.
Well, there's no more catcher collisions, so he should be all right in that perspective. No more broken legs for him.
Yimi Garcia is officially on the block because he just got traded for the Astros, and I don't expect him to be the closer for the Astros. All right, so we move on to a trade that Justin and I made, pretty negligible. Justin Villar for Shane McClanahan, 2 bench bats. Actually, Shane McClanahan was on Justin's bench. He's going into my starting rotation. Jonathan Villar was on my bench going in his rotation. Oh, and Justin is calling into the show. I have him here. Justin, you are calling in to the 6th rendition of the Boys of Summer podcast. How are we doing today?
Oh, hello. How are you?
Oh, we're doing great. I got here in the co-commish, Eric Follman. We are breaking down the trades. We are just at the point where we are talking about the Shane McClanahan for Jonathan Villar swap.
Okay.
So we're right in the thick of that. We're saying McClanahan on your bench, Villar going in your lineup, and vice versa for me.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a necessary move for you. I mean, you needed some pitching, and then any help I can get on offense is gonna be great for me right now.
Yeah,
so.
Jonathan Villar, some homers, some stolen bases, decent on base percentage. So what else is going on? Any shout outs you want to make for the rest of the league? You want to put anybody on notice?
Well, I did want to break some news to you.
Oh,
hopefully you're sitting down.
Yimi Garcia traded to the Astros.
Yeah, you're now down a closer too.
Well, it's okay. He was my bench closer.
Okay. All right. Well,
I like breaking bad news to Kyle on the show. It's
great. How come bad news always happens every time I record a pod?
Hey, at least somebody didn't tear an ACL this time, you know.
Yeah,
So,
not yet. The pod is still young.
Just want to give a shout out to my boy T-Pain for finally getting a deal done for Goldschmidt. I'm hoping Goldie can do some good things for my offense for the rest of the year, and hopefully Carlson can do some good stuff for his offense. So
yeah. Is there anybody you need to put on the block or any trade targets you need to be made clear?
No, I like where I'm at right now. I'm just waiting for some of my guys to get back healthy. So
Yeah,
that's about it.
I hear. All right. Well, thank you for calling in. And,
all right. Best of luck to everybody else, and hopefully I can snag the 6th playoff spot.
Yeah, we'll see about that when we get to our playoff predictions later.
All right, cool. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Peace out, Girl Scout.
yeah, man.
All right. See you. Bye.
All right. That was league member Justin reacting to that trade. What do you got for grade for this one, Eric? Anything worthwhile?
I mean, I like was McClanahan an A?
No, he's a C.
Okay, I like him. I mean, you got a lot of pitching, but this is a guy that's going to get more Ks than innings pitched. Decent ERA. The whip's a little higher than you'd like, but again, like you said, a 1-for-1 move. Justin helps out his offense. I don't know if we can really call Villar much of a stolen base threat too much anymore.
Got more stolen bases than Vasquez.
Yeah, about the same. But I mean, 8 steals, 5 caught stealing. His on-base percentage isn't the greatest, but I understand he's got a little bit of pop in his bat. Always has. Scores a little bit of runs here and there. I don't mind the move at all, especially if you're
and he
trying
should
to
stay in the lineup with what's his name hurt.
Definitely, yeah. So I don't think he's a stolen base threat. He was just a couple of years ago, honestly. He's, for some reason, baseball in particular is just not stealing bases. But I like what he's done. I like the move for both sides. I mean, you get a pitcher, which you have plenty of, but you can never have enough, as we spoke about earlier. And Justin gets some needed offense there. So
16 steals last year, 40 steals in 2019 for Villar.
Yeah.
But yep, he's getting up there in age. I don't think he's stealing the same amount of bases anymore.
No.
All right, another big blockbuster involving Justin and Phil. So Phil sends over Mookie Betts and Raimel Tapia. He's been hanging on to Tapia for a while. Finally was the final push to get Justin to accept a trade where Phil would receive DJ LeMahieu, Luis Garcia, and Aaron Judge. Reactions to this one, Eric?
I'll be honest. I think Justin gave up a little too much here.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I think Mookie Betts is the best player here, but I mean, looking at their seasons, is Aaron Judge and Mookie all that different? I mean, really, when you look at it, outside of the stolen bases, there, Aaron Judge and Mookie are darn near identical. He's given up on LeMahieu, which I understand. LeMahieu's had like the worst year of his career up to this point. I mean, he's usually a 330 average bat, let alone OBP's much higher. But so he kind of gave up on that a little bit. Garcia's been really, really good. 96 innings, 114 Ks, a 3.19 ERA. That would be the ace on the Cubs. So I think, I don't know. I think Justin gave up a lot here. Obviously, if you're getting Mookie Betts in return, that's not bad. Tapia, on the other hand, obviously he's going to get some steals, 18 steals, a 278 average. So you can kind of get that in return. I don't think it's bad for Justin, but I did think, man, that's a number 1 or 2 pitcher, a DJ LeMahieu, which unless you think he fell off planet Earth, is usually a pretty damn good ball player. And Aaron Judge and Mookie are just about parallel this year. So, that's a tough one, and I'm pretty sure Judge is quite a bit cheaper than Mookie as well.
Yeah, so that's a big difference maker for me. Now, my reaction to this is actually might surprise you. I don't like this trade for either team. And the reason why is I don't think either team realizes what they're getting here. I don't think they realize kind of what this trade really means. I think you hit the nail on the head on what I was going to say when it comes to the difference between Aaron Judge and Mookie Betts. I mean, all you're doing is swapping categories. Their on-base percentages are going to be very similar. Aaron Judge is going to have more home runs, more RBIs, and Mookie Betts is going to have more runs scored and more stolen bases. So you're just really swapping the categories out, and I think it's pretty negligible. But Aaron Judge is like $20 cheaper. I think Judge was like 25 or 22 or something, and Mookie Betts was 46. So, I mean, I would rather have Aaron Judge at this $20 savings than Mookie Betts. Now, the difference maker in this trade is DJ LeMahieu, who you said has not been playing well. But I mean, for his career, I mean, it's not like DJ LeMahieu, he had Yeah, okay. I guess he's had 2 to 3 good years. Yeah, he played really well in 2020, really pretty well in 2019. He had one good year with the Rockies. But I mean, last year was or 2019 was the
Yeah,
first year where he had over 20 home runs. He's always been a
20,
batting average guy.
2016, 2015, 300 plus, 2017.
Yeah,
He's
but he hit 11 home runs that year and 6 home
oh
runs this
yeah,
year.
sure. I
So
mean,
I mean,
I'd
he's
keep him in the lineup.
so he's Miles Straw. You're not Miles Straw is hitting 310. I don't hear you clamoring about Miles Straw. So, I mean, like that's all it is. So like I don't think he was like that great. So maybe 2019 with the juiced ball, maybe that was the outlier for him where DJ LeMahieu hit 26 home runs. Maybe DJ LeMahieu is more of like a 310 hitter with 15 home runs, more than a 330 hitter with 25 home runs. That's all I'm saying. But who knows what it'll be the rest of the year. He hits in a was supposed to be a pretty good lineup when the Yankees haven't been that good this year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and then Luis Garcia, I think that there's a chance that he gets a phantom August IL stint because they're going to want to limit his innings. He's a young guy. He's controllable. He's at 96 innings this year. Plus, they got Greinke. They got Odorizzi coming back. They're going to have Urquidy coming back. And I think when Urquidy comes back, Urquidy's going to take his spot in the rotation. And just like they did with Christian Javier, they're going to put Luis Garcia in the bullpen to limit his innings. So I don't know how many starts Luis Garcia even has left. So I think when you look at the return for both sides, I just don't think that I think they're getting more than they think they're getting. Justin taking on that salary was head scratching after kind of being in sell mode. You think he'd want to cut salary and take high upside players, but I think his gears kind of switch. He's all in on this year. And Mookie Betts is the kind of guy who can hit 15 home runs, steal 10 bases, have a 350 average from this point on the rest of the year.
And let's not forget too, that was Aaron Judge not on Phil's team to begin the year, right? I mean, he's
He
trading back
traded
for him,
Chapman.
correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And that was a move that I wasn't a huge fan of in the beginning because I'm like, man, the one thing he kind of needs is that power big bat. So Judge is kind of getting a late season reunion back on his team.
And Judge got COVID, but I mean, at least he's not hurt. I mean, it's
There
only
we
a matter
go.
of time before he gets hurt again, or he gets back
Yep.
spasms, or something goes wrong with Judge and he's back on IL, and that could really hurt Phil by giving up Tapia and Mookie and getting back a banged up Aaron Judge. Now, Aaron Judge is healthy; he's not banged up now, but he has a track record of being that, and that's the whole reason he traded him away in the first place. So I'm going to give C minuses to both teams. I think that this trade could definitely be a difference maker. It could go one way or the other. It could certainly help both teams. It could certainly be devastating to both teams. But I just think that they didn't really realize what they're getting from all of their players.
Yeah, I'd give Phil probably a B plus on this one. I'd give Justin maybe a B minus. Again, like you said, it really could be a swap. As we can see, Justin's really trying to get back in that steal market between Villar, Betts, Tapia. He's trying to get back up into that category for sure. So I could see the need there. But that's a lot. That's a lot of trading for that one need. But we'll see what Mookie can do.
0 homers, a 293 on base percentage over the last 30 days. That's not a
right.
small.
And yeah, Mookie Betts, we'll see if what he's able to do. But again, I don't know. I think Justin, I don't want to say gave up too early on the Yankees guys because it is almost August. But I got more faith in LeMahieu than you do. But we'll see how it turns out.
All right, then our last trade, we got Tyler Naquin and Paul Goldschmidt in another trade involving Tyler and Justin, heading over for Dylan Carlson and Adalberto Mondesi. My reaction to this is I like the trade for both sides. Adalberto Mondesi is, I think, a keeper at shortstop, high upside player for Tyler. Dylan Carlson is probably not a keeper at that price, but it's possible. He's actually been heating up. He had another home run today. Over his last 30 games, he's got a 304 on base percentage, 4 home runs, 14 RBIs, starting to heat up a little bit. Actually, those 4 home runs have all been in the last 14 days. So he's heating up a little bit. I still don't think he's going to be a keeper at that price.
You think Mondesi's a keeper at $23?
Oh, is he really 23? I thought he was a little cheaper than that.
Because I don't know, man. If you're looking, I get the steal department there, but the OBP's never been there. The home runs have never been there. I'm surprised you're not ripping that one more so.
Yeah, I guess I thought Mondesi was closer to like $14. I didn't really realize that what his value is. Is there a way to see their price in their player profile?
No, I click on the team real quick and see. Yeah. No, there's not.
Well, I also don't think that Naquin's a C player, and I think that he doesn't really play every day. And then Goldschmidt, he's good. I think he'll put up good numbers, but he's certainly not a keeper at $31. I mean,
No, not with the season he's had.
And he'll put up decent numbers, but he's more of like, he's on pace for more of like a 25 homer, 80 RBI season, as opposed to a 35 home run, 100 RBI season that I think you kind of expect to get out of him. So I liked how it did fit. If you look at what Justin's team is, he needed a first baseman, and he has a glut of second basemen, and Gleyber Torres and Villar and Nico Horner and Nicky Lopez. And then he has shortstops in Lindor and third base in Rendon and Urshela. So, I mean, he has kind of a glut of infielders, so he kind of traded away out of his depth there to get a position of need and a higher upside bat. So I liked it position-wise for him. I think the trade does help him this year. I just think it might have been a little bit of an overpay for Goldschmidt.
Yeah, my thing is honestly, I'm very kind of neutral about this trade because as we pointed out, Tyler he's not out of it, but he's getting to that point where he might start having to think about next year. And I'm not sure how this move looks for next year because as you pointed out, is Carlson a keeper at that price with the season he's having? It's not a bad season, but it's a very average season. He's not going to get steals. His OBP's okay. His power's not really there, but he does hit at the top of that lineup. Mondesi, like I said, I don't know if I would keep a guy that can barely hold a 300 on base percentage at $23 specifically for one category. I just don't think I could do it. It'd be like having a 23 salary closer, Josh Hader. I thought that was too much to pay when whatever team paid for that. So I don't. It's one of those things. I don't know if anyone in this trade is a keeper, and that's why I kind of like this move more for Justin than Tyler, because Justin's looking at Paul Goldschmidt and saying, "Hey, if I can get the real Paul Goldschmidt for the next 2 months, and I can compete this year and make that push for the playoffs, that's a win for me." So,
I agree.
Is Goldschmidt worth the price? Is he a keeper next year? Probably not. I don't know if any of these guys are keepers, which makes me ask the question of why did Tyler make this move? But with that being said, that's kind of why I like it more for Justin.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point. You kind of swayed me a little bit. I'll give Justin a B+, and I'll give Tyler a C-.
Yeah, that's about what I would have had it as well.
All right, so let's head over to the waiver wire. Oh, wrong button. And with the waiver wire, I just want to point out a few names that I kind of picked up that have had a pretty big impact on a couple of the teams that we've seen over about the last 2 months. Now, a lot of times it's hard to do waiver wire reactions just because when you pick up a guy 2 weeks later, you don't really know what his impact is yet. And because by the time you get him in your lineup, he hasn't really impacted your team. So I took a look back, and here's some of the names that I've seen that have made the biggest impacts of some of these teams, and I want to just kind of point them out. So Justin picked up Akil Baddoo, who's been awesome for him. He also picked up Luis Garcia, which helped him acquire Mookie Betts. Jonathan Scope was picked up by Eddie about 2 months ago. He's been going off. Jake McGee was dropped by me and picked up by Eric. Gee, he could have helped me out quite a bit. Jonathan India was dropped by me and picked up by Justin, then traded to Eric. He also had a cup of coffee with Crim's team. Joe Ross was picked up by Dave, by David Long. Merrill Kelly, who has not pitched great, but he's pitched well lately in Peter's lineup. Harrison Bader is really turning things around. He's been really hot lately. He might be really good rest of the year. He was picked up by Jay. Zach Thompson's been really good for Tyler. Ranger Suarez has been the Phillies closer for the last couple of weeks. He was picked up by Chad when Neris jizzed his pants. Kwang Young Kim has been really good for Eric. Nice pickup there. Not a lot of strikeouts, but the ratios, man, you can't argue with those. Certainly. Patrick Sandoval has pitched really well for Crim. He might be a good trade target or trade piece for Crim to get rid of. Paul Sewald for David Luzak Wamble. Now that he is now the current closer in Seattle, we'll see how long that lasts. Greg Soto for Jay. He has been the closer for Detroit. I don't know if Michael Fulmer is coming back to take that job. Detroit's played very well lately. They're more of like a 500 team, not a bottom dweller anymore. So that could actually be a decent pickup there. Eric Haas for Justin. Holy shit. He's got like 18 home runs. He's got like 17 of them in the last like 3 weeks. Another grand slam last night. Luis Urias for Chris, John Gray for Jay, now Crim, Bobby Bradley for me, 11 home runs and about 100 at-bats. Jake Fraley for Tyler's been good, and then Ross Stripling was good, and then he shit the bed. Any further comments on biggest impacts from those guys and those names you've heard?
No, I think you covered it pretty good.
All right, so we will jump into our power rankings now. As usual, we will work from the bottom up, and our bottom dwelling team in the power rankings and in the standings is going to be Eddie. With Eddie's team, not a whole lot of note here. He might still have a few moves to make. I know Tyler's expressed interest in acquiring Jonathan Scope, considering he's a C contract. What do we got here? From Eddie, but yeah, Eddie's not going to make a run. He's pretty dead in the water. He's just in mode of acquiring assets if he decides to kind of log on and respond to a few messages.
Yeah, not much to say here. Like you said, a couple A players he could maybe deal. Not a whole lot going on. Kind of the same situation as a few weeks ago. I think Shope's interesting. Trevor Story again, interesting if someone wants to take on that salary. Not saying he's a keeper, but I don't think Eddie's keeping him for 36. So that's a guy to think of. But yeah, pretty much status quo as far as we talked about this team last time.
Yeah, I mean, if Dave wanted stolen bases, Trevor Story would be a good guy to go after. For
Yeah,
him.
definitely.
Very well on his
Better
team.
than Christian Dan Vasquez.
All right, coming in at number 13 in the power rankings, dropping one spot, is Crim's Crew. Crim's Crew has completely punted this year. He's in 2022 mode, and good for him. He's made a few trades to get some future assets. He's traded a lot of his C players. I'm sure he'd like to get something for like Profar, kind of for Lefa, or some of his pitching. He knows he's made it clear the trade lines are open. Cole Irvin and Patrick Sandoval could be trade pieces for someone down the line. What do you make of Crim's team and his future prospects?
Like I've been saying it all along, I've really liked the moves he's made. I think there's a lot of potential here. I mean, when you look at his offense, there are only 3 guys he might have on his offense from this year to next year is Acuna, Trout, and Correa, and then he can
Eloy.
basically and Eloy as well. He could basically, and that's between Eloy and Correa, that's $20, and then he's got the 2 big superstars. He's got a lot of room to move and make some moves to continue that offensive push. And then obviously the pitching, Liberatore, Pearson, the young guys, Javier, if he can get back in the rotation, Sale, Syndergaard, Reyes is going to be his closer at $4 without a doubt. Joe Musgrove at that price is an absolute bargain. I think Crimson's pitching is already set for next year. He's just gonna have to fill in that lineup. But I've liked almost every single move he's made.
He's done a very good job of acquiring not only good pitching but cheap pitching. He's gonna have a lot
Yes.
of money to spend on offense. I mean, he might have like a $50 pitching staff next year, and he might be able to spend like $210 on his offense.
And it'll be a good pitching staff. It's not like
Yeah.
it's a cheap and like just thrown together. I mean, with
Yeah.
those prices, you cannot argue with that at all.
I don't think it's as good as you think it is, though.
We'll see.
I mean, Noah Syndergaard hasn't thrown a pitch in a long time, and it's not like he was like Cy Young before he got hurt either. Like the potential's always been there, but like his ERA is kind of fluctuated. 2019
he's had one bad ERA year.
The last time but that was the most his last good year was in 2018, and in 2019 at a 4.28 ERA, and then he hasn't pitched in 2 years. So
I guess
getting out of Syndergaard really, and same thing with Chris Sale. Like, yeah, Chris Sale puts up elite strikeout numbers. Are they going to be the same? I mean, you hope so, but he also put up a 4.4 ERA. Wrong button. He also put up a 4.4 ERA the last year he was like full time on the bump in 2019. So,
only 220 Ks and 147 innings though. I mean, that's you can keep him in the lineup just for that.
Yeah, but definitely. Like that's all I'm saying. Like, are they keepers? Yes, for sure. Like, are they good pitchers? Yeah. Like between those two, they're going to strike out a ton of guys. But I mean, if their ERAs are hovering around 4, more closer to, and I think they're going to be closer to 4 than they're going to be to 3.
Oh, I'll disagree on that one.
I don't think this pitching staff is as good as you think it is. T1 Walker's pitched really well, but I just don't really know
$5 too.
What he is going forward. Joe Musgrove, his first good year for 12. Can't argue with his numbers there. Good strikeouts, good innings, good ratios. He's pitched really well. So I mean, like, yeah, it's good, but it has the highest upside for sure of anyone. I just think that it's not like these guys are surefire going to be studs all next year. I don't know if Musgrove's going to carry over what he did this year into next year. I don't know if T1 Walker is going to carry what he did this year into next year. And Sale and Syndergaard are big question marks coming off of injury. That's all I'm saying.
We'll see. I like it.
All right. Coming in at 12th in the power rankings, we're going to go to David Luzak Wambold's team. That is team COVID free. As always, just kind of some head scratchers here. He's got Austin Nola, who's only got 52 at bats at his catcher. I think he's kind of stayed in his lineup. I just don't think he checks his lineup all the time. He just makes some questionable decisions. He's got McMahon on his bench for some reason. I can't really explain what's going on here, but I don't think there's a whole lot to say here.
No, not really. I mean, he's actually got some decent keepers and guys like Mancada. I think Cronenworth at that price is probably a keeper as well. He's got some decent keepers in that. Verdugo is not bad at that price either. But yeah, I mean Jazz Chisholm is looking like a solid player as well. But we'll see what happens. Yeah, not too much checking lineup there. Pitching staff's kind of a little bit of a mess, but we'll see how it turns around.
Coming in at number 11, I apologize, but Tyler T-Pain coming in here. Now, this is a point where from these guys forward, none of these guys are out of it. And David's not really out of it either. We just don't really see mathematically he's not eliminated, but I think mentally he's pretty eliminated. Tyler's team is by far still in the running. He can definitely make a run in head-to-head. He can make a run in Roto. He's up to like 670 points in Roto. So he's making a little bit of a move there. He's only like a couple games behind of being in a playoff spot. He's going to have to take down a surging Eric in order to kind of make that moves. But what do you make of Tyler's team?
Kind of like we said last time, it's surprisingly decent, like for where he is in the standings. Having Tatis, Gurriel's having a season, Winker, Marte, all these guys as well. Even Jake Fraley, the pickup. I know he's been banged up a little bit, but he's been great. Nate Lowe, pretty good player as well. The pitching, we'll see if it holds. Obviously, he got Rodon, Stroman, Thompson, Wheeler. These are fantastic ERAs from Tyler. They're going to have to keep it going. If anything, I just think he needs his lineup to really turn it around and start going, because like he said, Caprillian's been amazing. Like if you really look at that rotation right there, that's solid. I mean, the ERAs are fantastic.
It's a wild team. I mean, if you look at his rotation, he's got like 3 guys with sub 3.2 ERAs. I mean, and Trevino's been very good at closing. He's got Hembry. So I don't know what he's going to do for his second closer. Maybe he'll find someone on waivers or something like that, or make a trade if he wants a second closer. But I think he's fine with Hembry for now. But yeah, I mean, Zach Wheeler, Zach Thompson, Stroman, Rodon, Caprillion, and then flexing in spot starts and Alex Wood as well to play kind of matchups. Flexen got lit up the other night, but it doesn't matter because he was on his bench playing the matchup. So yeah, this is actually one of the better performing rotations. I don't know if it's one of the top rotations in the league, but certainly you can't argue. The proof is in the pudding here. These numbers are very good. It's a top rotation with the way they're playing right now. And he's got the names to kind of to tread water with his offense. I mean, Gurriel's very good. Fernando Tatis, you mentioned it. Guys like Marte, Winker. These are high up, Bellinger, high upside guys. If his offense puts it together, he could make some noise. I think he's going to keep climbing up the Roto rankings. I don't know if he has enough juice to make the head-to-head playoffs, but he is far from dead in the water.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I had him ahead of Bryce in my power rankings. You had Bryce ahead of him, so they're very close. Yeah.
You know, I received some flack, which brings us to Bryce's team next. We received some flack that we've been too hard on Bryce, so I wanted to show him some love, and I actually did the same exact thing last time. I was like, well, let me put Tyler down here, and then I looked at his team, and I'm like, you know what? Damn, Tyler's team is actually pretty good.
He's got to shoot it straight, man. Shoot it straight.
I would definitely put Tyler in front of Bryce. I don't know if I flip-flopped him last time, but here's where we are. Yeah, Bryce's team, I mean, the pitching is obviously abysmal. He said it in the chat. He's trying to move some of his pitching, but his pitching makes me want to throw up. He wants to trade Paddock, and Paddock got lit up last night. Stripling, when was his last start? Oh, he pitches in 2 days. But he had one really bad start. Other than that, he's been okay. I considered trading for him. I just didn't really love his matchups. Manaya's been okay. He's been pretty good. I guess I'll throw some respect on Manaya's name, but Heaney's been bad. Domingo Germán's been not great. These are just not names that I really care for. His offense was really good, but he traded away a lot of his really good offensive pieces. And there's seems to be a few, not really gaps. I guess his offense is still pretty good, but what do you think of Bryce's team?
I think him getting rid of Bauer was genius at this point. So
that was a really good trade.
Yeah, and he got Savali, and who else for that? It was Savali. Yes, I mean, these are 2 guys that are easy keepers next year. So I mean, if we're talking about next year, Savali and Manaya at $8 combined for getting rid of Bauer, who we don't know what that situation is going to turn out to be. I think you got to give Bryce a huge pat on the back for that one. Mackenzie Gore against.
I could have been more wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Mackenzie Gore at $8. Who knows when he'll get a crack at that super loaded Padres team, but we'll see. I don't mind Bryce's pitching next year, especially if he can go into it so cheap. I know Paddock got lit up. I still think he's a keeper at $10 next year at 25 years old. I know that might be a little staggering seeing that ERA, but if you can start next year with Manaea, Paddock, Savali, Minot, or I guess Minot is a C, but Gore, if he does get a shot, that's not a bad place to start. But yeah, the offense is a little bit of a different story. Josh Donaldson's been really good. I think he's a keeper at $7. Bogarts has been pretty solid. But yeah, I just don't know if there's enough there. It just seems like there's just something missing offensively, and obviously he was looking for that ace the entire time, and then he had to trade him. Savali's been out. It's just been a lot of moving pieces. If you got a guy with a 5.3 ERA and a 4.5 ERA and a 4.8 ERA in your rotation, odds are your team's not going to be very good.
Yeah, a guy that a lot of people kind of sleep on. I didn't really think much of it at the time. I didn't really care for him as Domingo Germán, though. Domingo Germán might be a good buy low kind of guy. I don't really know if I have the need for a pitcher kind of like him. I can't afford to have him kind of torpedo my ERA. But if you look at his game log, he got lit up early. He did not pitch well. He gave up 7 runs in June 13th. But since then, since like June 25th, his runs given up per game are 3.33, but then 2.021. He's pitched really well lately. And you kind of can't argue with the results that he's had over the last couple starts, over his last 30 days. That's still equates to a 4.9 ERA over his last 30 days. That doesn't really add up, right? But maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, it just seems like I would like to buy low on Domingo Germán. I just don't know what I would give up for him. Just, kind of like a small piece. The offense is still decent. I think Bryce can be pesky. I think that without having a surefire closer, Trevor Rogers getting hurt, Richard Rodriguez probably getting dealt, it's going to be tough for him, but I think he can be pesky. I think he can win all 5 categories on any given week based on what the potential of his offense can be. And he's a guy that you can't just roll over. I think I'm struggling to kind of take a lead on him this week. And unless my offense turns it around, I mean, he's got Albies hitting home runs. He got Donaldson hitting home runs. He's going to beat me in a lot of the offensive categories. So I kind of got to be careful. I can't mess around. Can't play with my food this late in the year.
And I will say this in regards to Bryce T. I know I'm looking ahead to next year again, but he's got some big salary players on offense. I don't know who he keeps or who he doesn't. I know you're not a big prospect guy, but Austin Martin's in AAA. CJ Abrams was raking in AA before he got hurt. And again, who knows when Gore comes up in San Diego? But if he can somehow, if he does decide to keep those at those low salaries, and he keeps Minea and Savali, there's almost more than half your keepers there. Bryce is a guy that could enter next auction draft with a ton of money to play with.
Yeah. All right, coming in at number 9 in the power rankings, we have Justin. With Justin's moves, we like some of the moves that he's made. I think his team is kind of a complete team. It's not a lot of glamoring names he has here. He's traded a lot of his guys that had big names like Aaron Judge and DJ LeMahieu, but he needs to get healthy. He needs Lindor, Mookie, and Rendon back, because those are going to take the spots of Gio Urshela, Jonathan Villar, and maybe like an Adam Duvall or something like that. And once he does that, then his team is going to look pretty complete on offense, and his pitching has played very well. Kevin Guzman, Lance Lynn, Casey Mize, good ratios. I think they're going to kind of dial down his innings the rest of the year. Pineda has been pretty good, serviceable. Graven, unfortunately, losing that job, but Alex Cobb's been good as well. And then if he can just weather the storm until Shane Bieber gets back, hopefully in a couple weeks, he is going to be a guy that could possibly make a move. He's got to tread water another week or two, get these guys healthy, and then he could be a dangerous team. He could sneak into the playoffs, but he's got to play well. His team's got to live up to its potential over the next couple weeks, or he's going to fall too far behind.
Agreed. He needs Bieber back ASAP, because I do think there still kind of is that hole in that rotation just a little bit. You don't really want to see Pavetta in there with a 4-5. If Bieber comes back, that can really solidify things. Like you said with his offense, he's got Rendon, Lindor, and Betts all out. I mean, you put those 3 guys in the lineup, you're got to be feeling pretty good about yourself. So again, like you said, if Justin can just hold on these next couple weeks, somehow find himself in position those last couple weeks to have a 7-3, 8-2 week, he might need it. But with these guys coming back, he might just get it.
Yeah, I would agree. So we're going to go to number 8 in the power rankings, which is going to be, actually, I think we have we have a 3-way tie here for number 8. And it's going to be 8, 7, and 6. We view them all aggregate the same. Let's start with the lowest in the rankings, and that would be Chad. So Chad's team here, I still like where Chad is at. I think his offense is still decent, and his pitching staff has very high upside. But the thing with Chad is Chad seems like Karinchak is not the closer. They seem like he's kind of not pitched well over the last couple of weeks. I think they're going to give more save opportunities to Class A. Soria is pitching for the Diamondbacks. He's not going to have that many save opportunities. Ranger Suarez, I don't know if how long he's going to keep the job for. He's pitched well enough to keep it for now for a decent Phillies team. And then Daniel Bard somehow has 15 saves for probably all of 15 wins that the Rockies have. But they're
Right.
going to be so bad, especially if they trade Story. They're not going to win a lot of games. So I don't really know what he does for closer and kind of how that pans out. But his rotation can be very good. Lucas Giolito, I think he's starting to turn things around. He's pitched very well. Nola, I think there's a lot of regression coming his way. I think he's going to be good rest of year. Means coming back off injury, very good. Willie Peralta has pitched very well. And then Austin Gomber, who didn't pitch well at the start of the year, but he's really come around. I actually witnessed his, I think it was like a complete 8-inning shutout that he had in Colorado. Then his offense has some holes, but still kind of hanging in there. What do you make of Chad's squad?
As you know, all year I've not been a huge fan of Chad's rotation. I think Glasnow and Giolito are decent. I still think he paid way too much on Giolito and Nola, but that's besides the point this deep in the year. Means is great at that time. Great price there. I'm not, like I said, I'm not head and shoulders like thinking that his rotation's that great. I mean,
rest of your Tyler's rotation or Chad's rotation?
Chad's. Yeah, Chad's.
Chad's over Tyler's.
No, I don't know if I'd take Chad's over Tyler's, but he's got the names. But again, Glasnow's good. Giolito's been okay. Nola's not been the greatest. Peralta, 42 innings, 24 Ks. What's he doing in there?
I don't think he's back till September.
Right. So I don't know. I think Chad's free falling. I think that free fall is going to continue. I'm not a huge fan of the offense. After that huge, amazing start. He's got some power in there with Cruz, Reyes, Abreu a little bit, Chris Bryant, but Gallo. I don't know. It just seems like it's missing something, and I don't know if there's enough there for him to really make a push.
Yeah, and it's not like he's got like guys that are hurt. I mean, he's been one of the healthier teams aside from Tyler Glasnow. It doesn't seem
Right.
like it's not like he's got reinforcements coming off of IL soon, like some teams do. I mean, he's got some holes at second base. Wong isn't great. Miguel Rojas at shortstop, not very good. Charlie Blackmon has not played well. Good on base percentage, but only 6 home runs for Charlie Blackmon. Playing in Coors Field is kind of a surprise. And he's getting back Franmil Reyes, who's got 20 home runs, 19 and 200 at bats, which is very impressive. But he's also a lower on base percentage guy. So yeah.
And I will say this in regards to Chad's team too. I know, again, we're still talking about this season, but going into next year, he's got a lot of high contract guys that I don't know if they're quite worth that high contract. I don't know if he's got 12 keepers on his team. So again, Chad's going to be a guy that's going to be someone that has a lot of money, I think, to play with next year, unless he keeps some of these guys, because he doesn't really have many of those like cheap, I'm going to keep that guy type of players. I mean, Means, maybe, Karinchak, maybe, but I don't know what else.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you might be right. All right, coming in at number 7 in the power rankings, we have Peter. Peter taking a little bit of a fall lately.
This is the lowest he's ever been. Hasn't he been top 3 like every time?
Pretty much. The injury bug has caught up to him a little bit. He hasn't been able to weather the storm of the injuries as well as some owners have. Commission. But yeah, Nick Castellanos going down with a hand injury. That hurts him. Yelich getting COVID. Those are his 2 best outfielders. That hurts. He lost Canna for a while. But we said this. at the beginning of the year. We said, hey, if he battles injuries, his whole bench is nothing but prospects. He's not going to have the horses to kind of fill those spots. And we're seeing it now. He's got Iglesias in it, and it has utility. Obviously, El Garcia has been okay, but he's had to kind of make some trades to kind of fill these spots here. And just not really, especially with the rotation, he's not found quality guys to kind of replace those spots. I mean, Dylan Cease has pitched okay, but not great. Tristan McKenzie, same thing, a 5.6 ERA. Ryan Yarbrough, 4.38 ERA. And who's the other guy? Oh, he just traded, or he had Merrill Kelly in his lineup for a little bit too. I mean, these are guys that you wouldn't want in your rotation.
No.
If you're certainly healthy, they wouldn't be in anyone's rotation. But because he didn't really have that depth, he kind of had to throw these waiver wire guys in there who haven't really pitched well for him. So I think he's reeling. I think he's struggling. And I don't know if I see the light at the end of the tunnel for Peter.
I agree. I don't know if there is at all. I mean, Flaherty, Kershaw, and Lamet all come back relatively soon within the next kind of 2 weeks here. But I mean, you can't survive with that rotation right now. I mean, Corbin Burns is really the only viable starting pitcher in that rotation right now. John Gray, a little, I guess, but
He's gonna be pitch counted.
right. But John Gray kind of scares me a little bit pitching in Colorado, obviously. And honestly, again, you look at that offense. Castellanos is banged up a little bit right now, and obviously Yelich was hurt. But if you really
Yeah.
look at that offense, is it really that eye popping? I mean, Jared Walsh got off to that really hot start. He's had a productive year. Okay. Tim Anderson, decent with the steals. Kana, okay.
256 on base percentage for Suarez. That's
Yeah, that's
gotta be enough
awful.
for anyone that qualifies.
I mean, you look at that offense and is there really anything that, I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's not eye popping. I don't know if even the offense carries him. Throw in the fact that his whole rotation's hurt. I feel bad for Peter because I would hate to be in that situation with that many injuries, because his team was doing so good. But I agree with you. He doesn't have the trade chips to really improve it. And he's been holding on to those prospects all year, which you would assume he's going to keep at this point.
Yeah.
So Peter's in a really interesting position where I think he kind of just has to sit and hope for the best.
Yeah. All right. Coming in at the number 6 spot. Just a blah team. He's
blah.
not going to be happy about this at all. He will be very devastated to hear that he's back down to 6th in the power rankings. He had a surge. He had the high peak, but he's coming back down to earth. What do you think of Dave's team? I'll let you take the lead here.
My thing on Dave's team is when you look at like what he's good at, roto wise, it's Ks, saves, ERA, and WHIP are really his good categories on pitching, and then obviously the home runs on offense. The RBIs are there as well, but it's really his pitching that's been carrying him a lot this year. And again, we've been waiting for it to blow up. I think it's kind of started a little bit. Kyle Gibson had a really bad start, but his ERA is still good. Marquez has been good, but pitches in Colorado. Scherzer's still there, but Sonny Gray got lit up. Logan Webb. I mean, I don't know. I've said it all year that I don't think his pitching is going to hold. He made the right decision in trading Scherzer from me, but I don't think the pitching holds. And honestly, the offense I still think is missing one big bat because Altuve's there. Sure, Arenado's been having an okay-ish year. Definitely not what he used to do in Colorado. Meadows has been okay. The RBIs have been amazing, but outside of that, okay. I think he's missing just that really big, awesome bat. And kind of in the same breath, I think he's missing one other pitcher. So I think having him 6th is about right. I know he's been hovering in the top 3 for Roto forever, and it might sound like we're giving him a bad ring, but I don't think it holds.
Yeah. With Dave's team, I mean, it's tough because I look at his lineup and it's like we've known Dave as looking up and down his lineup and being like, hey, where's the gap here? Like he's just got guys that are hitting. And now I'm like looking at it and I'm like, wait, he's got David Peralta and David Dahl in the outfield. Each of them have 4 home runs on the year. And then he's got JP Crawford at shortstop, who's got 5 home runs. And then he's got Christian Vasquez at catcher with 4 home runs. And Brian Hayes at utility with 4 home runs. Like
Yeah.
we're 2/3 of the way through the season. If you got 4 home runs, you're doing something wrong. And have these guys in your lineup. It's killing his home runs. It's killing his RBIs now. And he's starting to plummet down in those rankings in both those categories. And like you said, I agree with you that there's a lot of regression coming for this pitching staff. German Marquez is 1 start away from going 2 innings, 10 runs, because it's what he does like every 10 starts. It's just a matter of if you can time it up correctly on when it's going to happen. Kyle Gibson has pitched like shit ever since the All-Star break. I know because I took him in another league. I traded for him. And then Craig Kimbrell, probably about to lose his closing job potentially. Who knows? If he goes to the Dodgers, maybe he's a closer. Maybe he just splits time with Jansen. Maybe they just go with the hot hand. I don't know. Tyone, not been great. Montas, not been great. Sonny Gray just got lit up in his last start. Now I'm looking at his rotation going, wow, a lot of his guys have above 4 ERAs. Yeah.
I mean, really looking at this team, I would be, if you told me they were 3rd in the standings, or in the Roto standings, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And I think that this is going to be
4th
that we're going to see kind of dropping down here. He's got to tread some water here. We're going to see how things kind of pan out.
Definitely.
Coming in at number 5, we have Mr. Eric, who's been surging, taking over in the power rankings over Dave. Eric, what's been fueling this surge for your team?
Oh man, once you said I wasn't going to be a playoff team, that was it. No, I'm just kidding. Really, and I've said it all year long too. There's no reason why my team shouldn't have been better than what they've been doing the first 4 months of the, or sorry, 3 months of the season. I had the names, I had the guys. I'm getting reinforcements soon, and Robert, and maybe I don't know how his innings are going to look, but Severino as well might be coming back in the next couple weeks. I don't know how viable he will be, but I like the moves I've made. I think I've upgraded a lot there. And really, I'm just finally starting to get production from these guys. So it's good to see the pitching staff has held up, and we'll see if it can continue. What do you think?
Yeah, like I said, and I said this in the last pod, but I like the balance that you have in this team. You got stolen bases, you got Power and Devers and Olsen and some of these guys. I like the way your pitching staff's kind of rounding into form. One thing that I think my biggest takeaway from this team is, what do you think you could get for Luis Severino on the trade market? Because I think it's the time that Severino becomes fantasy viable, fantasy relevant to the point where you can actually play him. I mean, even once he's activated, he's not going to be throwing 6, 7 innings. I don't know if you ever will this year. So could you turn to Tyler and get like a Caprillion and somebody else for Severino? You know, is that something that you could do to really kind of buy all in for this year if you think you're making a move? It could be interesting. Wander Franco, who's prospect pedigree, but he's not really played up that well. Maybe somebody buys in a Wander Franco on going in for this year. So I think you are one of the most intriguing teams because you have moves to make. And if you want some more buy now guys, or you can just say, hey, my team's good. I'm rolling. I don't see any holes. I'm built for this year. I'm built for next year. I'm rolling. But I think that there's a move that could be made here to really get you a big splash. Maybe you go and trade for Mookie Betts if Justin falls out of it.
Yeah. It's tough because I see Severino as a 1. I mean, when you look at the last 2 full years he's had, he's been absolutely terrific. So it's tough because I held on to him for so long that man, that would really bolster my rotation next year.
Yeah. All right. Coming in at number 4, I have myself, the commissioner, Burns when I PV. I just would like to take this time and put you all on notice because I'm coming. I am coming for you guys. Don't drop that soap because I am coming from behind. I like the way that my team is rounding out. Yes, I overpaid on some trades. Yes, I gave up Logan Gilbert for Yimi Garcia, who I'm about to drop in about 5 minutes once we're done recording here. Yes, I gave up probably too much Carlos Rodon for Raisel Iglesias. But I like where I stand now. I have some decent pitching. I have some decent arms. I just got to play the right matchups until I can get Pablo Lopez and Jacob deGrom back, hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so. My offense, my biggest holes are at second base and third base and shortstop. Well, guess what? I got Bregman coming back next week. I got Ketel Marte, who's taking at bats. He's coming back next week. And Corey Seager coming back next week as well. I am bringing a hurting, and you better get the fuck out of my way because I am coming. That's all I have to say.
I like your offense. I've always liked your offense. And like you said, with those reinforcements coming in, I don't see any reason why that won't continue. I don't think your pitching's by any means bad, but we went from looking at your pitching as one of the best in the league not too long ago to kind of looking at it now in a little bit of a different perspective, just because Plesac, 80 innings, 52 Ks, 4.26 ERA. I don't know if he's even startable at this point. Kukichi's been really good. Alcantara has been really good. Obviously, Valdez has been really good, and DeGrom obviously has been DeGrom. But I'm curious. Obviously, you're Kyle. You're going to make some moves. I'm really curious to see if you make another move for a pitcher, because I think if you could get another even 2 to 3 kind of guy in the rotation pitcher, you might need that, because yes, Pablo Lopez is coming back, which should help out a lot. So maybe you don't need to make a move, but the offense is coming around, but the pitching is I think there's a little bit of wonder there.
You see this little one up here? That would be for my 2-3 starter. So maybe that was just enough to accept that trade that's in my inbox.
Right. And it's like I said, I don't dislike the rotation. It's not a bad rotation. It's just one of those things. Your offense is so good that I wonder if there's a move to be made to get just one more kind of reinforcement in the rotation.
It's puzzling because I look at my rotation. I was leading the league in ERA and WHIP by a long shot. Now I'm not even. I think I'm in like third now after the last couple of weeks, where I felt so good about where I was. I was like, man, I got like Kikichi coming off my bench, like starter. And then it's like, oh shit, it's actually as the editor says, you can never have too much pitching, because now I'm like scrambling to throw Plesac in there, who actually turned things around. He gave up 2 runs in like the first 2 innings, but ended up getting the win today. 5 innings, 2 runs.
Nice.
Glad I kept him in there. Yeah, I kind of like where I'm at. I'm always open to trades. I'm trying to wheel and deal as we speak. But yeah, always looking to wheel and deal. Coming in third, we have Phil's team. And I put myself above Phil's team. You did not, which is why it kind of panned out that way for our aggregate rankings. Why don't you tell me about what you like about Phil's team?
When you look at really his offense, I mean, Otani's carrying it right now, but Aaron Judge, Otani, I've always been a Brantley fan. Simeon's having an amazing year. Jose Ramirez is having a good year. Carlos Santana's I mean, his offense is there, no doubt about it. And then when you look at the pitching, Yu Darvish, Luis Garcia, Tyler Maley's kind of regressed a little bit, but his Ks are still there. Wade Miley's been really good. Chapman outside of that really bad stretch that we know. Chris Bassett. I mean, these might not all be household names, but when you really look at his team from top to bottom, and again, kind of interesting that that Judge trade kind of made me look at this, but I think his team now is more balanced than ever, and
Yeah.
I really like his team moving forward. I think it's from top to bottom. I don't see a huge weakness. I don't see like a ginormous strength. Outside maybe his Ks are really good with all of his pitchers, but I don't really look at his team and go, man, he really needs this or he really needs that, because I think top to bottom, he's a pretty balanced team all around.
Yeah, I think it does have good balance. He basically has everything you need. He's got saves, he's got wins, he's got strikeouts, he's got some stolen bases, although he did trade Mookie. But he's got stolen bases from Ramirez, Simeon, Otani, which is enough to be decent enough, middle of the pack. He's got power. I'm not sold on a lot of his offensive pieces and how they kind of fit together. I mean, I feel like he could get a little bit more power, but maybe he'll get that in Aaron Judge and DJ LeMahieu if DJ LeMahieu turns it on. Carlos Santana has not played the greatest in the second half. He had like 14 home runs after like the first 2 months and just hasn't really done a whole lot since. If we look at his last 30 days, these guys prove me wrong. He had 5 home runs in his last 30 days. But it seems like he's kind of starting to slow down a little bit. Lamont Wade, who didn't hit those 12 home runs on his team, he just claimed him on waivers. And having Michael Brantley only with 6 home runs, Didi Gregorius 8 home runs. I mean, I guess I just don't see this being a top offense, and I don't see this being a top pitching staff, especially with their aggression coming for Malley and Miley pitching in Cincinnati. And I think if Luis Garcia gets shut down, I also think that Bassett is due for some regression as well. I just don't think the underlying numbers are that good for him. So I just don't really see this as like a top 3 rotation. I don't see this as a top 3 offense. Maybe combined, it turns him into a top 3 team. You can't argue with his head-to-head results so far, but I mean, yeah, I think that there's better teams out there.
Yeah, good explanation. I like it.
Coming in at number 2, we have Jay, the battling swashbucklers.
My preseason champion.
Your preseason champion and my number 1 in my power ranking. Unfortunately, it was not enough to get us aggregate number 1, but I think that Jay is taking this thing home now that we are here. I said it a couple weeks ago. I really like Jay's team. I am continuing to say that I really like Jay's team. I think he's got probably the best rotation in the league when it comes to names. Luis Castillo has been pitched phenomenal since his slow start. Hendricks, Cole, Morton, Ryu. I mean, those are 5 household names, 5 guys that strike guys out. And, well, I guess Ryu and Morton, I guess Ryu and Hendricks don't strike a ton of guys out, but Garrett Cole can kind of make up that gap. Kenley Jansen, Gregory Soto, 2 closers. Maybe he could, and Class A might be the closer as well. Ian Kennedy is currently the closer, and Paul Sewald is currently the closer for Seattle. He's got like 5 closers. He needs to call up Chad and get some of his offense, but he doesn't really need it because his entire offense is set. His lowest home run guy in his entire lineup is Buster Posey. And that basically tells you everything you need to know about his offense. And he's got Trey Turner holding him in steals. I love where he's at. I don't think there's a weakness in this team unless Trey Turner has COVID for the next two months. I really like where his setup is.
Yeah, I've liked this team all year long, and it's been kind of a slow start for him, but I think he's made the moves necessary. I wish my trade partner was Dave in every single trade. Between him trading for all of his Charger boys in football and doing this in baseball, he's the guy to call if you want to get the one up on the trades. But yeah, Jay's team's looking good. Like you said, if you look at the home runs on his team, just top to bottom, it's kind of staggering seeing those really, really high numbers there. But overall, Jay's team is climbing. They've been continuing to climb. They're up to, I think, 5th in Roto, tied for 4th, I guess, technically. But he's elite I mean, when we talk about elite in roto categories, he's 12 points in runs, 13 in homers, 14 in RBIs, 14 in steals, 12 in OBP. The only thing that's missing is the pitching. He's bottom half in almost every category. And as you pointed out, it's starting to kind of come together for him. I don't know if Morton at his age continues. I don't know if Ryu digresses. Hendricks is finally getting it together. But as long as you got Castillo and Cole kind of hanging in there at the top, pretty good. I'm not as in love with the rotation as you. I think about the numbers we have there, about what we're going to get, maybe Castillo progresses a little bit. But yeah, that offense is just a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I like where he's at, which brings us to our number one team, Chris. I don't think that Chris is the number one team anymore. I do think that there's a little bit of a chink in the armor here for him. Catcher McCann's not played well. Adam Frazier is kind of like a 2-category contributor at this point. I hope he plays every day for San Diego, but I don't know for that for sure for certain. Conforto not playing well. Springer kind of a slow start coming off IL. Maybe he's heating up a little bit. Upton hasn't really done anything since he's come back from injury. Edman, again, about a 2-category contributor, steals and maybe runs, but he's hurts you in home runs, hurts you in RBIs, hurts you on base percentage. Benintendi is okay for $1, but I'm sure he'd rather have Brendan Crawford in there. And the reinforcements, maybe Brandon Belt comes back and helps him. Luis Urias, I guess, is played pretty well, but I don't really see like a whole lot there. And then his rotation, he might have guys that are on pitch counts. Freddie Peralta, Logan Gilbert, Walker Buehler, they'll probably let pitch. Eric Lauer not pitching well. Steven Matz not pitching well. I guess Lauer's pitched okay. Numbers are decent, but I don't trust him. I just think that this team is kind of missing something. I mean, if Bauer comes back next week, then my opinion changes. But until he does, I just don't really like the situation that Chris has kind of dug himself into here. I think he needs a little bit more. He might need to make a move.
Yeah, I had to put the respect on Chris's name because when he did start surging up those rankings, I had him at 6th. You had him at 1st, and I was like, you know what, we'll see. And then he kept hanging up there, so I had to give him the benefit of the doubt. I like his offense. I think he could pretty much hold fort with his offense for the most part. I don't hate it by any means. Obviously, you can maybe get another batter.
Very good. I think it's probably still a top 3 or 4 offense. I just think
right.
There's a few small holes.
My thing is the pitching, and I think that Bauer move was a little premature. I know there was that situation going on, but if you're telling me having Savali and Manea in that rotation right now wouldn't make his team look insanely loads better, I mean, that's the situation he's in. So we'll see if Bauer comes back or not. If Bauer comes back, we talked about it on the last show, that's huge if Bauer comes back and pitches. But if he doesn't, having Savali and Manea in there would have been absolutely huge in itself. So I think he's holding 4 right now. We'll see if he's able to kind of hang up there. Roto wise, he's got a pretty significant lead, right? I mean, you've done it more than me. A 13-point lead this late in the year is, I'd say, a pretty big gap. So we'll see if he can hold.
Just don't drop that soap, Christopher. All right, so those are our power rankings. I do want to take a quick glance at what's kind of happened over the last couple of weeks. Let's go back to a couple of weeks, take a look at any marquee matchups here. Chad took me down period 13. This was at the end of June, early July. Kind of didn't really mean a whole lot. Wasn't a huge victory, but kind of helped him tread some water for a while. Not a whole lot of big victories. Beantown Boys losing to Tyler certainly hurt him a little bit. Peter beating Pablo Sanchez Eddie was kind of to be expected. And then Christopher beating COVID free was to be expected. Not a whole lot going on this week. The following week, Chris, I held my own, but this was the week that I lost Acuna and DeGrom. So I know Christopher was talking that smack in the chat, as he should. He beat me, but losing DeGrom and Acuna in that same week really hurt me when coming to losing 4-6. Any other big matchups you see here on this was from that long week we had over the All-Star break?
Yeah, that real 13-day one, that was interesting because I don't know if a lot of people noticed you could have reset your roster after the All-Star break, which
yeah.
I did to just get a couple more starts in. I needed that 8-2 week over Phil. I know that was a week that I was like, man, I really need this week to go well. It did. I think Chad with the 8-1 week really kept him afloat as well. I know it was against Crimson's 2022 squad, but Chad really needed that to float. And that was kind of the start of Peter's decline. A 1-8 week, your preseason champion versus my preseason champion at Jay, that really turned the tide.
Yep. And then last week we had me versus Krim holding the fort down there. I needed that win. You got to beat up on the bottom dwellers, or else you're not really going anywhere. Justin competing versus Jay. We thought that one could have gone the other way. So kind of big for Justin to kind of make it, the moves that he's made, kind of paying off there. treading that water. Bryce tying Chris, which is a big win for Bryce. You beating Tyler, which is to be expected, but pretty big victory. Helping you climb up the rankings.
Definitely.
Chad losing to Eddie after having those 2 really good weeks, and then Peter losing to Phil 2-7. So those guys, as we talked about before this week started, we were like, hey, Peter and Chad, we think they're going to fall out of the playoffs, and just like clockwork, they did.
They did. Yeah, they did. I mean, that was a really tough loss for him. Like I said, there's not a huge amount of shift that week, but there was just enough to kind of keep it interesting. Chad had the big week, then followed it up by that bad week. Peter again in free fall with the 2-7-1. And yeah, these next few weeks, man, we're getting down to the wire.
Yeah, so as we look at kind of the future, we got this week. I am beating Bryce 6-2. If I can go 6-2-2, I'd be happy with that. I'm just trying to hold the fort down until my guys get back. That's all. Angels in the Trout Field beating Phil. That would be incredible if Justin can beat Phil 7-2. We would really not hate to see that whatsoever, to kind of even the playing field a little bit, really make things interesting. That would really knot things up if that holds true. If I pick up 4 or 5 games on Phil, and then Justin can pick up 7 wins this week, that could really shake things up, especially seeing that Chad and Jay are kind of knotted up here. What do you think? Any predictions for this week, or any big games you see?
I'll say for this week, I was going to go a little bit ahead just for a second. I think Justin, this week is huge for Justin because the next 2 weeks, he plays real quick. He plays Tyler, which is again a winnable matchup for him if he can get it together and COVID free. So if he can somehow scrounge up a head-to-head win this week, he can maybe reel in those next 2 weeks and string together a couple 7-8 win weeks. So Justin's team, I think this is a really kind of, I don't want to say make or break week for him, but if he can somehow hold on to that 7-2-1, he's got another chance the next 2 weeks to keep that going.
Justin is only 2 games back of a playoff.
Yeah. Right. And obviously that Chad J one I think is interesting too, because if Chad wants to stay afloat, he can't afford 3-win weeks. I think he needs to try to get that up to 5 or 6 this week, or else again free falling. Tyler and Peter 5-4-1, both teams kind of, we'll see. Tyler might be on the up and up, Peter's on the down. A lot of fun matchups.
Yeah, looking ahead to next week, we have me versus Eddie. I hope I can kind of do what my team needs to do there. That'll be the week. I expect that to be an onslaught. That'll be my first week at full strength, hopefully in a while. And I hope that's just a bloodbath there. Jay versus Krim, he'll probably take care of business there. Eric versus Chris, that'll be a prove it matchup for you. You think you're going to take Chris down there?
That's the one that worries me a little bit because that's this late in the season with how many weeks are left. And then I do play Dave the last week of the season. I got a couple hard matchups coming up. I can't afford a 2-8, 3-7 week, so I would honestly perfectly be fine. I think if I could hold fort with like a 5-5 week with Chris, I'll be happy. So even a 4-6 week, I don't think would be the worst thing.
Oh, and Chad has to play Phil. Ew,
yeah,
that could be bad news for Chad. Let's see, the following week I get Dave. Let's see here. Chad gets Tyler. It's Phil.
You and Dave. That's a good one. That's a good one.
That should be a good one. You get Bryce. That'll be a loser leaves town matchup. You guys are pretty bright. See what Bryce does over the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
He's still kind of in it, but he's right there now. So no reason to think that he wouldn't be. Peter versus Chris. That could be Peter's funeral here. And in week 18, taking on Chris. And then Jay gets a soft matchup in Pablo Sanchez, just to kind of boost his seeding there, going into the final week of the season, which is me versus Jay.
There's a lot of good ones that final week. I think
I have a feeling it's going to come down to this last week for sure. It might come down to 1 or 2 categories. I hope it doesn't come down to tiebreakers, but
right. Because the interesting thing about that last week is people aren't just going to be paying attention to their own matchup. There's going to be a lot of scoreboard watching to be like, man, I need to pick up 2 or 3 games on this guy. Well, how many categories is he winning? Blah, blah, blah. Because you and Jay last week, that could be right head to head. I think Justin and Chris, that could be right head to head. Me and Dave, that's 2 playoff teams possibly going at it. So, I mean, it's going to be a fun last week.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So before we go, let's give our playoff predictions. I just changed things up last second, based off of just looking at some of these matchups and everything that we've said so far today. My playoff predictions are: I feel like Phil will get the number 1 seed, Chris will get the other bye, and then in this order, I think I will get the 3rd spot, You, Eric, will get the 4th spot. Jay will get the 5th spot. And I had Dave in here, but I'm switching over to Justin. I think Justin's going to sneak in there and get that 6th spot. And it'll be me versus Justin in the playoffs. And it'll be Eric versus Jay, which I think would terrify you, Eric.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. My 6 playoff teams are honestly the 6 teams that are in the top 6 right now. The thing with the teams that are a little bit below, like the Peter, the Chad, the Justin, Dave's got such a decent, I don't want to say a huge lead in head to head, but as long as he does not have a 2-8, a 3-7 week, it's going to be tough to catch him because Justin's 10 games out with 3 weeks left. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely surmountable, but 10 games is a decent enough lead where I think Dave would almost have to fall apart to not get in. I really think it's me and Jay.
Justin's 8.5, or he's 8 behind.
Right. But if you think about it, he has a 3-game week, and then Justin has a 6-week. He's picking up 3. He's picking up 3 points. You know what I mean? So as long as Dave doesn't completely fall apart, I think he's pretty secure in.
Yeah, that would be tough. That's why originally I had Dave in there. I didn't want to knock him out. I think his lead is a little safe. It's not completely safe, but yeah, he's built up quite the lead there. I think he's in a good spot, but I don't think he should feel comfortable. We still have 3.5 weeks left, so 4 full results. So I mean, that's only 2. That's Justin's got to gain 2 wins every week over Dave in order for that to happen. Could be more, could be less.
Yeah. But no, I have my 6 teams as a 6 that are in there now. I know that doesn't sound too juicy, but I just don't think Peter can keep up. I don't think Chad can keep up, which really, to me, the only team that I think could slide in there is Justin. And that scares me because of who he's close to. I think the only teams he could knock out are me and Jay, and I don't want that to happen. So, and I do think Jay's team is better than Justin's by a little bit at this point. So I don't want to say the other teams are out, but I'm not high on Peter's team right now. I'm not high on Chad's. So Justin's really the team that would worry me moving forward.
Yeah, so your 6 playoff teams: Phil, Chris, Eric, Dave, Kyle, and Jay, in that order now.
Yep.
All right. So any closing remarks there, Eric? Any shout outs you want to make? Any smack you want to talk before we go?
No, man, it's nice to see that climb. Finally, my team's paying off. It's good to see. But no, it's going to be fun. The real deadline coming up here, and we'll see what happens in our fantasy league. But man, I can't. This is the most fun I've had playing fantasy baseball, so I can't complain.
It really is. I'm really enjoying this new format. I love the way our league interacts. I love the format of it. I couldn't enjoy it anymore.
100%.
So I'm your host, Kyle. Thank you, Eric, for coming on. And
as always,
you guys have all been warned. The reckoning is coming. All right. Peace out.